The glass door of the little cafe swung open, letting in a gust of winter wind and a girl who looked like she'd been walking for hours. Her shoes were worn thin, her coat too small for the bitter cold, and in her trembling hands she clutched a few crumpled dollar bills. She stood there in the doorway, her eyes scanning the crowded room until they landed on one empty seat, right across from a man in an expensive suit who sat alone by the window. She walked over slowly, hesitating, then asked in a voice barely above a whisper, "Excuse me, sir, is this seat only for the rich?" The man looked up from his coffee, and what happened next would change everything about how he saw the world. Before we continue with this beautiful story, if you love heartwarming tales of kindness and human connection, please subscribe to Sage Stories and hit that like button. We share these stories to remind us all of the goodness that still exists in the world. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's get back to this incredible moment. It was December 23rd, and Madison Avenue Cafe was packed with last-minute shoppers taking refuge from the cold. The small coffee shop had become a haven that afternoon, filled with the scent of cinnamon and evergreen, the sound of Christmas music mixing with the chatter of people wrapped in scarves and designer coats. Among them sat James Hendricks, chief executive of a major investment firm, though nobody in the cafe knew that. He ducked in to escape a particularly difficult day, one where numbers and reports had blurred together until he couldn't remember why any of it mattered anymore. James had chosen a table by the window deliberately, hoping the sight of people passing by might clear his head. He'd ordered black coffee and sat there in his tailored suit, looking every bit the successful businessman he was, yet feeling emptier than he had in years. The holidays always did this to him. They reminded him of what he'd lost along the way in his climb to the top. Time with family. Real friendships. The simple joy of connection. That's when the girl appeared. She couldn't have been more than 16, with dark hair falling loose around her face and eyes that held both determination and fear. Her jacket was threadbare, patched at the elbows, and her jeans had seen better days. She carried a backpack that looked heavy, and when she moved, James noticed she favored her left foot, as if her shoe was hurting her. The cafe was full. Every table occupied by groups of friends, couples sharing pastries, families with shopping bags piled high. But his table had one empty chair, and she'd noticed. She approached slowly, and James saw her swallow hard before she spoke. "Excuse me, sir, is this seat only for the rich?" The question hung in the air between them. Around them, conversations continued, but James felt as if the world had narrowed to just this moment. He looked at her properly then, really looked, and saw the way her fingers gripped those few dollars, the way her chin lifted despite her obvious discomfort, the pride fighting against necessity in her stance. "No," he said quietly. "It's just a seat. Please, sit down." She lowered herself into the chair carefully, as if the furniture might break, and set her backpack gently on the floor. Up close, James could see that her hands were red and chapped from cold, her lips slightly blue. She'd been outside for a long time. "Are you warm enough?" he asked, and she nodded quickly, though he could see her shivering. She ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small regular coffee, and counted out her money twice before handing it to the waitress. James watched this transaction and felt something crack open in his chest, some wall he'd built between himself and the rest of humanity. "I'm James," he said, offering his hand across the table. She hesitated, then shook it briefly. "Emma." They sat in silence for a moment. James wanted to ask questions but sensed that pushing would make her retreat. Instead, he said, "It's cold out there today." "Yes, sir," Emma replied, wrapping both hands around her coffee cup when it arrived, as if trying to absorb every bit of warmth from it. "You don't have to call me sir," James said with a small smile. "James is fine." She nodded but didn't use his name. Years of deference to people with money had taught her to keep distance. James recognized that now. How many people did that with him every day? How many conversations never happened because of the walls his success had built? "Do you have somewhere to be tonight?" he asked gently. "Family expecting you." Emma's expression flickered, something painful crossing her face before she composed it. "I'm trying to get home," she said. "To Ohio. My grandmother's sick. She raised me after my parents died, and the hospital called to say I should come if I want to see her." "You're traveling alone?" James asked, concern sharpening his voice. "The bus ticket costs $47, Emma explained, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I've been working odd jobs all month. I had 42 saved, but my landlord needed the rent, and I could only keep back 15. I've been trying to earn the rest today, but nobody needs help on Christmas week. She laughed, a broken sound. I thought I could at least get warm for a little while before I figure out what to do next. James felt his throat tighten. Here he'd been, sitting in his expensive suit, mourning his loneliness while this girl was fighting just to say goodbye to the person she loved most in the world. He reached for his wallet, but Emma's hand shot out, stopping him. I'm not asking for money, she said firmly. I just wanted to sit down. I'll figure it out. Her pride was fierce, and James respected it, but he also knew something she didn't. He knew that sometimes the universe puts people in your path for a reason. Sometimes a chance meeting in a crowded cafe is actually an answer to a prayer you didn't know you'd been praying. I'm not offering because you asked, James said carefully. I'm offering because I can help, and because maybe I need this as much as you do. Emma looked confused. Need what? To remember what matters, James said. Do you know what I was doing before you walked in? I was sitting here feeling sorry for myself because I've spent so many years chasing success that I forgot how to connect with people. I have more money than I'll ever need and nobody to share it with. You have nothing but love for your grandmother and you're willing to do anything to get to her. You're richer than I'll ever be, Emma. She stared at him, and he saw tears gathering in her eyes. I can't take your money, she whispered. It's not about taking, James said. It's about letting someone help. It's about human kindness. Please. He pulled out several bills and placed them on the table. That's enough for your bus ticket and some food for the journey. Take it. Get to your grandmother. Hold her hand and tell her you love her. Emma's tears spilled over then. She looked at the money, at James, at her own worn hands. Why, she asked. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten, James said. You reminded me that we're all connected. That the measure of a life isn't what you accumulate but what you give, and who you love, and whether you show up when it matters. You're showing up for your grandmother. Let me show up for you. She smiled, truly smiled, and it transformed her entire face. Then she was gone, hurrying out into the cold December afternoon with hope in her steps instead of despair. James sat alone again at his table, but he didn't feel alone anymore. He held the little star ornament and looked at it closely. The sheet music was from an old Christmas carol, the paper yellowed with age, but she'd folded it with such care that it had become something beautiful. He thought about Emma on a bus heading home, thought about a grandmother who would get to see her granddaughter one more time because a stranger in a cafe had said yes instead of no. That evening, James didn't go back to his empty apartment. He called his sister, whom he hadn't spoken to in 6 months because he'd been too busy. He apologized for missing her daughter's birthday and asked if he could come for Christmas. Her surprised joy made him realize how much he'd been missing, how many connections he'd let wither while he built his empire of things that didn't matter. A month later, James received a letter with an Ohio postmark. Inside was a photo of Emma and an elderly woman with kind eyes, both smiling at the camera. On the back, Emma had written, "She held on until I got there. We had 3 more days together, and she died peacefully knowing I was home. Thank you for giving me that gift. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. You changed my life." James put that photo on his desk at work, and when people asked about it, he told them the story. He told them about a girl who asked if a seat was only for the rich and taught him that richness has nothing to do with bank accounts. He told them about the moment he remembered that kindness is the currency that actually matters, that showing up for each other is what we're here to do. He never forgot Emma or that December afternoon. The star ornament hangs in his window still, catching the light, reminding him that sometimes angels appear in worn-out shoes asking simple questions that change everything. Reminding him that we're all just people trying to make our way home, and that the greatest privilege in life is being able to help someone on their journey. Because that's what kindness does. It builds bridges where walls existed. It creates connection where there was isolation. It reminds us that we're not meant to walk through this world alone, carrying our burdens in silence. We're meant to share them, to lighten each other's loads, to show up in the ordinary moments that turn out to be sacred. A seat in a cafe. A few dollars for a bus ticket. A willingness to see another person's humanity and respond to it. These simple acts ripple outward in ways we can't always see, touching lives, changing destinies, making the world a little warmer for everyone. So the next time someone asks you a question, whether it's about a seat or help or hope, remember Emma and James. Remember that your yes might be someone's answered prayer. Remember that kindness costs so little but means everything. And please, share your own stories of kindness in the comments below. Let's remind each other that goodness still exists, that people still care, and that love, in all its forms, is always worth sharing. Thank you for being part of the Sage Stories family, and remember to carry kindness with you wherever you go.